happening now. A federal court struck down Texas's controversial voter ID law after ruling that it was discriminatory.
The court ruled that it was unconstitutional to assume that all citizens would have access to a photo ID.
ABC 7's Kayla Conboy joining us live from the Potter County Santa Fe building with more details on what's ahead for our November elections. Kayla?
Good evening, Lisa, Larry. Texas is one of only a dozen states to pass a new voting law that many opponents say is restrictive. As many of you know, as the law stands now, voters have to provide a valid form of ID in order to cast a vote. The only problem is politicians at the state level say it's not fair to assume that all people can get their hands on one of the 7 valid forms of ID. But as I was speaking with Potter and Randall County voting officials today, many of them say this has not been a problem at all in the past. In fact, many locals agree with this bill and say that it upholds voting integrity. A federal court in New Orleans struck down Texas's voter ID law, calling it unconstitutional, much to the dismay of Isabel Spiriti and her friends.
Well, it safeguards our voting rights. That way no fraudulent voting or what have you won't be occurring.
Some politicians say the fact voters must show a valid photo ID to prove their identity violates their rights.
We have the folks that don't like the photo ID, and we certainly respect that.
Potter County Elections Administrator Malin Huntley says opponents argue that many minorities and elderly can't get their hands on one of these IDs. She says that hasn't been a problem here at all.
Today, we just live in a country where we must be able to identify ourselves.
Randall County election officials agree. They say the state has made it very easy for people to vote. But Shannon Lackey says she could see where the law may need to be tweaked.
I've not heard from anyone as far as minority that was having a problem with a photo ID. What we encountered personally were elderly people that no longer drive or didn't have a current photo ID.
Spiriti says she's not even sure how that's possible. Every single one of her friends at the Senior Citizens Association has a valid photo ID.
Everybody I know has them. Well, you need an ID to do almost anything this day and age.
And as a safety net, the state has allowed 7 different forms in the past.
Before we had the photo ID bill, people could vote with the electric bill or the driver's license or their voter registration card, and even with that, most people use their driver's license then.
And now it becomes a waiting game. Officials say they have yet to receive any news from the state about what's to come from the November elections. They did say, however, that some states that have voter ID laws in place have started accepting student IDs or extending the expiration date for driver's licenses. We'll continue to have more on this story as it develops and as the state continues to work with this law and get it out for the voters to hear. So reporting live from the Santa Fe building in downtown Amarillo, Kayla Conboy, ABC 7 News.